This is what privacy law currently looks like. We've decided that informed consent is the solution. Just tell people what they're doing, get their permission, and everything is fine. Except this whole system is built on some deeply flawed assumptions. Assumption 1. People will read and understand what they're consenting to. We've already established that nobody reads these things. Assumption 2. People have meaningful alternatives. And sure, you can choose not to use Google, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or any website with Google Analytics. Just stop using the internet as a whole. Assumption 3, the choices are freely made. Is it really a choice when your job requires you to use certain platforms? Your friends only communicate through certain apps that harvest data, and every alternative collects your data. Opting out means digital isolation in a lot of ways, or fear of missing out, as many people may know. This is what legal scholars call the consent dilemma. We've put all the responsibility on individuals to manage their privacy in systems that fundamentally are designed to be impossible to navigate. It's like asking you to negotiate your own international trade agreement every time you want to watch a YouTube video. Okay, so maybe you're thinking, sure, companies have my data, but are not doing anything wrong. I've got nothing to hide. We need to talk about that argument because it's not just wrong, it's dangerous. As privacy scholar Bodea wrote, throughout our history, the survival of our most vulnerable communities has often turned on their ability to avoid detection. Let's travel in time for a second. In the 1940s, Japanese Americans cooperated with the census. Why wouldn't they? The census data was confidential by law. It was protected. 2 years later, the government used the census data to round them up for internment camps. From the 1970s to 2010, military chaplains, physicians, and psychologists used confidentially collected information to out gay and lesbian service members, ending their careers. In 2022, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, period tracking apps became potential evidential databases for prosecution for people seeking abortions. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Data that seems harmless today can become a weapon tomorrow. The problem isn't that the current government or current companies use or see your data, does with your data. The problem is that we have no idea what future governments, future companies, or future hackers will do with decades of accumulated personal information. And it's not just about hiding bad things, it's about aggregation, small pieces of innocent data combining to reveal sensitive information about you. Exclusion, being unable to access or collect your own information. Secondary use, data collected for one purpose being used for something completely different. And distortion, incomplete data creating false impressions about you. Say you bought a book about cancer, and then you may have purchased a wig separately. Meaningless. Now algorithms think or know that you're in chemotherapy. You didn't do anything wrong, but now you're in a database, and you have no idea what that database will be used for in 5, 10, or 20 years. So what's being done about this? Well, some places are trying something radical, actual laws. In 2018, the European Union launched GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, and Silicon Valley lost its mind. The GDPR actually does some revolutionary things, to be honest. Companies must get real, explicit consent before collecting data. You can demand to see what companies have about and on you at any given time. You can demand they delete it. The right to be forgotten is called. Companies face massive fines for violations up to 4% of global revenue. The last one is important. When you can fine Facebook 4% of their global revenue, suddenly privacy policies get a lot clearer. When it hits their pockets, that's when they care. Meanwhile, in America, we're still playing regulatory whack-a-mole. We don't have a federal privacy policy. Instead, we have different rules for healthcare, as in HIPAA, different rules for financial data, FCRA, different rules for kids, COPPA, different rules for students, FERPA, FERPA, California making up its own rules, CCPA, 47 other states doing whatever. It's like every state had different traffic laws and companies just had to guess which ones applied. Actually, scratch that. Companies don't guess. They just follow the strictest state's laws, usually like California, for example, and call it a day. But even with GDPR, even with state laws, the fundamental problem remains. We're still putting the burden on individuals to protect themselves in a system designed to explicitly exploit them. So we've established the privacy paradox is real. It's actually digital resignation, and companies actively cultivate that resignation. So let's think about what the current solutions are. Current solutions don't really work. The problem is getting worse. Cool. So what do we do? Here's the thing. Individual action alone won't necessarily fix this problem, but collective action can. And here's a few ways. Use privacy-focused alternatives if and when possible. For example, Firefox or Brave instead of maybe Google Chrome. Occasionally. Search DuckDuckGo instead of Google. Regular messaging instead of WhatsApp. Email, Proton Mail, maybe, instead of Gmail. But will this solve anything? No. Will it make you slightly harder to track? Yes. Install basic privacy tools and do the annoying privacy settings limiting ad traffic on your phone. While that may seem pretty annoying, it only takes about 15 minutes to maybe update those settings and find out what they're all about. And another tip would be maybe to actually opt out of data brokers. Sites like privacy.com and delete me can help. It's tedious, but it works. But here's what matters more than any specific individual action: collective steps. Demand real legislation. Power is in numbers. If 1 to 2 or a few people care and understand these privacy policies or understand what's being done with their data, they might take those specific steps. But if we have a collective of people, it's hard to ignore. We need it to be enforced by regulators who aren't toothless and spineless. We need companies to face real consequences for their violations. Support organizations fighting for digital rights. For example, the Electronic Frontier Foundation and Access Now, Fight for the Future, are 3 companies that, fight for that. Another way to do this is to make it a political issue. Ask candidates about their data's privacy. Vote for representatives who prioritize, make noise when companies violate privacy, and talk. And the last one would be to talk about it. Don't let digital resignation become the default. Sharing information about privacy tools, calling out egregious privacy violations, because there's a secret companies don't want you to know. They need you to be resigned, as we talked about earlier. That's what they're built upon. They need you to think that resistance is futile and that there's nothing that they can change about the way that these apps and applications are designed. TikTok got banned, or almost banned, because enough people made noise about the ongoing beliefs about data collection on the app. I'm not saying that this is good or bad. I'm not making any objective decisions, but that is kind of the result of what happened. Apple added tracking transparency because of public pressure. Changes can happen, but only if we stop accepting that this is just how things are and be resigned to them. Let's zoom out for a second. The privacy paradox isn't really about privacy, but it's about power and digital resignation and the feeling of not or having power, companies having power and people not. Right now, we live in a system where companies collect massive amounts of data about us, and we have almost no knowledge of what's collected or how it's being used. Regulators are 20 years behind of technology. Courts are still figuring out if reading your emails without a warrant is legal. The power imbalance is staggering. Google knows more about your medical conditions than maybe even your doctor in some cases, if you have an Apple Watch. Facebook knows who you'll vote for before you do. TikTok knows your insecurities better than your therapist. YouTube knows your race and gender and maybe even your political affiliation. And they use this knowledge to manipulate what you see, influence what you buy, shape what you believe, predict what you'll do. Not through some evil conspiracy, but through the cold, effective logic of algorithms and algorithmic capitalism. It simply just wants to build upon what it already knows about you and what they know you'll feed upon, not necessarily even meaning to target that. This is why the nothing to hide argument is dangerous. It's not about hiding bad things necessarily. I hope not. It's about whether we want to live in a world where aspects of our lives are monitored, analyzed, and memorized and capitalized on. It's about whether we think it's okay for your insurance company to raise rates based on your Instagram post, or your employer to fire you based on your internet history or what you post online, your bank to deny you for a loan based on your Facebook friends, your government to put you on watch listed based off of your search history. All of this is legal. All of this is kind of happening to some degree. Not in some dystopian future, but right now. We're being asked to solve a systemic problem with individual solutions. It's like asking you to stop climate change by using one reusable water bottle, while ExxonMobil is literally on fire behind you. So here we are, living in this paradox. We care about privacy, but we're resigned to the surveillance. We want to control, but we feel powerless. You know it's bad, but we don't know exactly how to stop it. And you know what? That's okay. You're not a hypocrite for using Instagram while caring about your privacy. You're not weak for feeling resigned. You're not dumb for clicking accept all. You're not dumb for not understanding your privacy policies. You're just a person trying to exist in a digital world that was built to exploit you before you were old enough to click on a mouse. But here's what you want to remember moving forward. Companies spend billions of dollars making you feel like privacy is impossible or something you shouldn't even really have to consider. They craft policies designed to confuse you. They create systems meant to overwhelm you. They want you to give up and be resigned. Don't. You don't have to become a privacy zealot, checking every single door at night. You don't have to move to a cabin in the woods and live off-grid. You don't even have to read privacy policies. Seriously, don't. You'll go insane, as we talked about earlier. But install one privacy tool, change one setting, use one alternative service, tell a friend, ask one question, think about ways that you can get a little bit closer to that goal. Because every time someone chooses privacy, it gets a little bit easier for the next person. Every time someone demands better, companies have to listen a little bit harder, like the GDPR. Every time someone refuses to resign, the system cracks a little bit more. The privacy paradox will never be fully resolved. We'll always live in a tension between convenience and control, between connection and surveillance, as we have before even the pre-digital age. But maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not about solving the paradox. Maybe it's about refusing to let companies and the government tell us the paradox is all well-deserved. Privacy isn't dead. It's just on life support. And it's up to all of us to decide whether we pull the plug or fight for it. And with that, I conclude the privacy paradox. Thank you all for watching. If you like the video, please subscribe, comment, tell me your thoughts. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!